lighting, but the one thing I really enjoyed was the most simplistic thing. The first scene of Hamlet. It's with the guards, and what they do is the walls and the floor is all mirrored, and they use flashlights, really powerful flashlights. They would shine on the floor and have it reflect off into someone else's face.
Nice.
And that was the most amazing thing ever. It's the most simplistic thing, but.
Sounds like
and then when the ghost came out, and all the light just went on him, I think it was the most amazing thing. It's the most simplistic thing. And
funny, they used flashlights in Twelfth Night too. When
Yeah,
Malvolio used that.
Yeah, but they use like the really big ones that you carry, like the really big ones.
Cool.
And when the ghost came out and all the light just went on him from like these two flashlights, I think.
Yeah,
was Patrick Stewart the ghost also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite parts. It was the most simplistic thing, and it was one of my favorite
Wonderful,
parts.
wonderful.
As far as like execution, another one that stands out for me was Woman in Black, because it was just so effective.
It was so real.
all the choices that they made and all the elements came together and like did what it was supposed to do and scared you.
People got nightmares.
Excellent.
That was awful.
Kevin,
Like the lighting, and by that I mean the use of darkness and like shadows. There was one point where it was so dark on stage that like my eyes were like straining, like searching to see something, and like I didn't know what I was gonna find, but I was like looking to find stuff, you know. So
were the scares like startling scares, like jumping out?
Yeah.
Of the
Yeah.
Screaming right behind your head.
But it had
Like,
a
was
lot
very,
of loud
tense.
But it
was
so
so
loud.
They had a lot of loud noises too that would just all of a sudden a woman would scream.
But it like
There-
vibrated in your ear though. And
There was
Yeah,
an
it felt like it
excellent
was right
moment where
behind
it's
you.
like almost completely dark on stage, and he just takes out his flashlight and he's like shining it at the audience, and then he like brings it back to himself, and then it comes to himself, and then you can see over his shoulder the woman.
She's right there.
And then the rocking chair.
Yeah, she's rocking in a chair and she just flies off.
she like
that too.
Like, it was
She's rocking really violently and like.
And it's not like they use
jumps
strings
off.
or anything. Like,
Fantastic.
and like the door, like the door would like open of its own accord, or like there was one point where it slammed of its own accord.
Yeah.
But like they did that like a few times, and it was still
Every
scary.
time.
Every time.
the heartbeat.
So how long is Women in Black run now?
It was full
20 years.
No.
20 years.
Is it run for? That's gonna become the new Mousetrap or something like that?
Well, is
Really?
Mousetrap ever closed?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
57.
I didn't realize
It's
it was
just
running
like
for
your
that long.
classic like ghost story that you tell like around a kid.
Yeah.
Like I just felt like I've heard it before, and been scared from hearing it from people just telling it to me, and then seeing it on the stage. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like
I thought it was very interesting also in the first moment when the guy gets up and is reading very quietly. It was not and you're like, alright, and then the guy enters from the back of the house going, I do hope this is about to get very interesting. And even that, it wasn't scary, but it startled you because you were so
You were
they got you ready for it in the first moment.
But they made it
I
very
thought that was so
funny in
brilliant.
the first
It was
scene.
9:30.
I want to
9:30 on Christmas Eve.
That Yo here said. That Sarah said. She knew the story. You recognized the structure and form of the play. You knew of the scare. You know, we all know that. Just like we know, in some ways, we know the story of Twelfth Night, or those of us who are familiar with it. But audiences in Shakespeare's time would know it. So it's not about the revelation of the plot that makes any difference, as most of you well know. It's the execution by the design directors and the actors that keep us suspended and in a state of apprehension of what will come next. Because even though you know the door is going to slam, when it happens and it's executed excellently, it still works. And that's why we keep coming back to the theater, and that's why some things will, that's why the theater can't be replaced in my view. And this goes to a discussion you and I are going to have at one point. Maybe on the airplane or in the airport, we'll finally get a chance to do that.
Wait, are you going to be sitting with us?
But, what's that?
Are you going to be sitting with us on the plane?
I don't know. Hopefully not.
Let it go.
Maybe I'll
Just
first
for the
class. I'll fly the plane.
I will stay.
We're all going down.
I think I'm going to stay in London for next year.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm really glad that you said that, and it's a testimony to really a good team of creative people to maintain that sort of sense of fun and anticipation.
it's Ben's turn now.
Actually, it's Taco, then Alicia.
That's not why I tapped on your shoulder. I was tapping on your shoulder so you can maybe move.
I know.
Glad I had that on.
Ben, do you need a place to stay tonight?
I might.
What
Anyway.
I found really impressive execution-wise with the acting was the transformation on stage of actors. There were several shows where one character would be playing several roles throughout the entire show, and in Woman in Black, the older man had to change characters on stage, just like, and you would see him just shift his body, and he would just become someone totally different,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. And also in 39 Steps, I noted that also, because then even you had actors talking to themselves, like switching hats and
The train
like,
scene with the-
yeah, it was
wonderful.
just, it was amazing. I thought that
No, that's-
execution-wise was really
Yeah.
really cool.
Fact-
That
Effective.
scene, oh, I love that because it's almost like the hats are flying. Like because he's
Yeah.
playing 3 characters all at once, and he's almost juggling the hats
Yeah.
on his head. And it's just like,
Yeah.
and then he has to get his character straight and his line. Oh,
Yeah.
No, my favorite part of 39 Steps was with the gunshot, where all the characters just like,
there's no one else left.
yeah, there's no one else left. It's like a random hand, just like with a gun, comes out and shoots the guy, and they're like, there's only
that
4 of
stage
us.
I remember Nick going, "Who was that?"
They all just break out of character, and it's just like, I don't know, it wasn't me.
Did you notice though that it wasn't a real human head?
Yeah, well, no, I know, but just the fact that they all broke out of character, and
and
they were just
someone
like,
to put a fake head out.
no, just the fact that they all broke out of character, and it was just like, I don't know, it wasn't me, you know.
Those are the wonderful moments where you suddenly know you're in the theater, and I think there's a lot of shows that kept reminding us that we're in the theater, that we're in the
Yes,
theater,
yeah.
and yet that in some ways maintains the illusion or the communion between the actor and audience. It's an acknowledgement. Shakespeare's a master of that acknowledgement of the audience's presence, as Nick talks so eloquently. Alicia.
What I really liked was the Every Good Boy Deserves a Favor and Edward Scissorhands, just because they were really different. I had never seen anything like that, and
Right.
I really liked how the music shaped people's emotions, and it shaped what people were feeling to get that message across. So I really enjoyed that. I'd never seen anything like that before. And also, 12th Night, seeing it performed is a lot different reading it, a lot different, because when you read it, you're imagining this whole set, you're imagining these elaborate people with more, it's just a lot different seeing it and seeing that message still come across with nothing on the stage. So I thought that was really brilliant.
Good.
I was gonna say something about August before, but it's fine. But I was gonna say, technically, like overall, I thought the 12th Night was probably the most successful because it was most minimal, but also I think the most visually stunning. Like the way the costumes and the lighting and just even the way that the characters presented themselves, like all together, was like really beautiful, and they used a lot of like really subtle, natural textures, and like at certain points the gratings in the doors, like they'd shine light through them, and that was creating kind of like a natural texture thing, and it looked beautiful on stage. And also, just the way that the costumes flowed, or the costumes could make you laugh, and I think that I was really surprised because to that point, I'd only ever seen like kind of straight Shakespeare, not really with that kind of emotion behind it, and it really kind of made me rethink Shakespeare, because in high school, you always get these teachers that completely beat Shakespeare to death to try to get meaning out of it, and it completely ruins it. And by the end, you're like, why? This guy is a jerk. Like, he must be some pretentious guy who just puts these things in there for giggles, And so, I think to see that actually performed on stage, and also that combined with the fact that that was after we got to the Globe and we talked to that guy who talked about how there's not as much meaning in Shakespeare as everyone wants there to be. I mean, there is. He was a beautiful writer, but a lot of it was written for the layman. It was written for the people, and to kind of like put those two experiences together was like really powerful to me, and it's really made me rethink Shakespeare, because before I had always just kind of cast off Shakespeare as